Hello and welcome. This is 5-Star General.
And this is Lord Lokgar.
And this is Dawn of War 2 Daily number 12.
Yeah, pretty excited for this one. Our apologies for Friday having to postpone the daily. We were gonna cast the GROS tournament, but I couldn't find a cameraman in time, so that was totally my fault. Tearing Up was busy casting it for GameReplays.
Yeah, it was part of 5-Star Loquin.
5-Star Loquin. I like that. It has a nice ring to it. But if you could just quickly explain the tournament, and I guess to catch viewers up, we're going to be watching a few replays from this tournament as well.
Yeah, sure. So, my apologies. I didn't mean to cut you off there. But yeah, so I won't give out any spoilers other than the replays of his show. Obviously, you'll see, like, you know, where some players are and whatever else from that, but we'll try not to spoil too much for you. But anyways, a big tournament. It was Tournament A of 5 tournaments in the tournament series. The GROS stands for GameReplays Open Season, which is actually a season of tournaments. There's 5 tournaments in that season. They're all individual upstanding tournaments. There's $25 up per grabs for the winner of each tournament. And then the grand finals will have 100 for the winner, 50 for second place, and 25 for third, I believe. But just because you win one of the first, 5 tournaments, right, doesn't mean that you can't play in the rest of them. So, like the winner of Tournament A that just won can go ahead and play in the next 4 tournaments and get the prize money for all 4 of those tournaments, and then win the last tournament. You can get like up to 225 in prize. So very, very, very big tournament series when you look at it that way. And even the individual tournaments, they're like, there is a round of 128. So there are 128 slots open. For Tournament B, that is going to start on April 8th through April 10th. The sign-ups are going to go up on Wednesday, so on GameReplays.org. So if you guys want to go ahead, sign up there. Lokgar and I have been talking about, we're going to make sure that the IC Cup stream is going to have casters ready for Tournament B. Casters and cameramen. Unfortunately, Lokgar was all ready to go ahead and soldier it himself. But, he needed a cameraman, unfortunately, and without the cameraman, it all just kind of fell apart there. But, so yeah, I mean, we're going to be doing that a lot better. But, so this past one, though, what just went down, sorry about the little music hitting out there, I was tabbing out so I could see your chats to see if you guys have anything to say to me whatsoever. I'm completely open to that now. But, anyway, so as I was saying, though, we just kind of finished that this weekend. Well, of course, this weekend tournament. So that's over. So what we're doing today is we have one replay that it was actually one that I casted that I just really liked, basically. As both an orc player, as an analyst, as a caster, as whatever, in relation to Dawn of War 2, just kind of seeing the kind of play that was put forward by GuruSkippy to deal with what Aki put out in front of him. It was just a very well-constructed build. It was well-executed up to a point. He kind of let his late game lapse a little bit, but he kind of executed the build and the micro well enough throughout that it definitely warrants a lot of analysis. We're going to go over that. We have 3 replays from ibfreeekout, who's a fan of the show that has submitted those to me for review. He actually got that chance to play against Edja, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of those. And then finally, if we have time, we have a game between Norny and Always Lame on Greentooth Jungle. With Norny playing as the mech boy, and this is something kind of like spur of the moment, like a little bit before. But I just watched the replay. It is a really, really, really good replay. There are like mistakes on both sides from both players, but just like a lot of the concepts that they both like try to go for and go after and whatever else, like, are just things that a lot of other players don't even pay attention to. And so there's a lot of stuff there that we want to look at, analyze, and just kind of like cast as a more entertaining game. But up until then, most of these are going to be more, daily show kind of. And I got to go ahead and, Lokgar, if you want to go ahead and pick this up here, I'm going to go ahead and turn off, the little pop-ups that you get in Steam.
Notifications.
Yes, the Steam notifications.
But yeah, I'm really excited to get these user-submitted replays underway. I believe we haven't actually had a user-submitted replay yet, and we've been asking for them almost every show, so this should be a lot of fun. If you can tell us how brutally honest you want us to critique your gameplay, if you want us to be super brutally honest, we will. If you want us to be fairly lighthearted about it, we will. Just submit your replays. You don't have to be a pro. We will pick apart your gameplay and tell you what you did wrong in however nice you want us to.
Yeah, so
yeah.
is that okay, so let's go ahead and fire up we're gonna start out with GuruSkippy and Aki. This was actually I'm gonna tell you guys, go ahead, spoil a little bit. This is the semifinals game, game 1 of the semifinals of the GameReplays Open Season Tournament A. So I'm booting this up. I'm gonna wait 5 seconds here.
I accidentally hit pause a second later at 6 seconds.
6 seconds. All right, so we're gonna do 6 seconds instead, guys.
In that 1 second, you know, there could have been 60 actions played, but we'll have to skip that 1 second. I apologize.
Alright, 6 seconds right here to get into some French. By the way, both Aki and GuruSkippy are French, so you're going to see French throughout. You're not going to understand it unless you speak French. And I
will, of course, translate. It's cool.
There we go. So Lokgar's got it all covered. So we good to go in 5?
Yes, sir.
Alright, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
HF stands for have fun, I believe.
Ah, that's right. And I think GJ stands for good job. And then
THX stands for that sound company that makes audio.
Oh man, you're right. It totally does.
But yeah, little comment on this build. Aki's going for the scout build, which is excellent against a slugga heavy build. Scouts move faster than sluggas. They're able to kite and use these buildings around this map. This map actually has several buildings. A lot of cliff buildings most players don't notice and or ignore completely. Those requisition points we made a huge mention of, I believe, the first week of the dailies, the contested ones. I believe both of them have a building next to them. At least the one on the bottom, Guru's
has a
closest
couple,
one,
yeah.
has 3 buildings, and one of them has 3 holes, which means every scout member is firing from one of these cliff buildings, which means the scout squad is protected by essentially a little bit more than yellow cover, can't be meleeed, but they're doing their full DPS to whatever squad's facing them. These buildings are very vital, I believe, in scout play on this map.
So meanwhile, we got right now for GuruSkippy, we have 2 sluggas and a shooter on the field. And we see immediately he's going for the power here. He's forcing Aki to play defensively. He's forcing him to get shotguns to fend off this power harass of the sluggas. So they're going to be able to kind of keep these sluggas somewhat contained here. Sluggas are going to do their best to take down this node, really delay Aki's getting power here. The longer they can delay Aki getting power, the longer they can delay Aki's capability to get Assault Space Marines out, to get additional shotguns out, to get Mastercrafted Bolter on the Apothecary, which is really brutal against Commando Nob, or really any Orc Commander, but...
Or any hero in general.
Any hero in general, yeah. Definitely the K-Nob really takes it on the chin, though.
One thing to note back in that power generator harassment was units in melee take, I believe, 50% less range damage, as long as the model, it's per model basis. But the Slugga squad, every model was hitting that node in melee, so they got the damage reduction bonus, and those scouts were just blasting away and doing very little damage. It made more sense to me if Aki would have focused fire on the other slug a little bit sooner, maybe gotten a few models, killed a few more models. But it's very important to note, and players need to be more aware of the damage reduction.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if it's... I've heard a lot of stuff, whether it's 50% or 20%, but yeah, there definitely is a reduction for units that are in melee.
It's very noticeable, too. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely will notice it. Now, what's interesting about what GuruSkippy is doing right now, by the way, guys, for those of you looking down at the build bar here, first off, let's go ahead and take a look at his power generator. His first power generator is going down on his natural gen farm right now. So up until this point, he's only had a node there, and he's got his secondary, secondary, what do you call it, power point
node.
Captured? Yeah, node. All right, so he's got the secondary here captured. He's got no node on that, and he just put a generator down on his natural. So he's basically been running very, very light in terms of getting power. And yet we go ahead and look at his power reserves. He's at over 80 power right now. Aki's at like 5 because he just spent like 50 on Assault Space Marines. But we've seen that Aki already lost a node. He had to reinvest back in that node, and he also invested in a generator already. And he has also, in the meantime, lost his secondary power node.
I really like this build for this map, if you don't mind me butting in real quick.
Oh, go ahead, feel free.
will get powered down by the shooters, especially since they have shotguns. Shotguns on the scouts have a damage fall off, depending on how like the distance from the shot fired to the target. The closer you are, the more damage, but also the easier you'll be tied up into melee. Some more good power gen harassment. No big shooters, actually. I just noticed that. That's very interesting, but still, on this map, with all these points to capture, a heavy tier 1 that can use these buildings is very useful.
Literally, if you look through what GuruSkippy has done here, he only has tier 1. There is no tier 1.5. He's teching tier 2 right now. He never spent any power the entirety of tier 1. He just kept adding requisition-only units. Like, he literally has no big shooters here, but he doesn't need them. He baited Aki into getting 3, well, okay, not only into getting 3 scouts. 3 scouts is, you know, okay, that was Aki's build order, right? So he can't transition too much out of that. But he could have decided about the shotguns. So Aki actually decided to go 3x shotguns. As we can see, he's got 3 shotguns right now and Assault Space Marines. But when we look at GuruSkippy's force composition, even though he started with 2 sluggas and 1 shooter, he's ended up with 3 shooters and 2 sluggers. Now I'm sure if we saw Tax or something else come out from Aki, that this build would have been adapted, but we see that GuruSkippy is basically adapted to what his opponent has done. And you see these 3 shooters, especially with the K-Knob's damage here, are still doing a lot of range damage. You don't need big shooters. They help, but you don't need them, and this is what GuruSkippy is proving here. And just looking how far ahead he is going into tier 2. Just absolutely, look at this. Aki's still at 65 power. GuruSkippy's almost done with tier 2.
Yeah, and Aki just lost an ASM model, might lose a second one on the retreat, just lost his hero. The Apothecary is very important to the SM army, Space Marine army. He's the healer. His war gear enhances his heals, you know, and stuff like that. And combined with the Assault Marines especially, they heal. You can heal all the models back to full health without them even losing a model, and basically give them double the battlefield duration. But going back to this large tier 1 army, this also allows them to outswarm Aki, because Space Marine units, other than the scouts, are very expensive requisition-wise. And this GuruSkippy army just allows him to swarm over, take over the requisition points, and then basically swarm him to death. And now he's tier 2 with the Death Dread.
Yeah,
which,
and he
is a walker unit for those. I feel. Can you just explain walkers? I don't know if we've seen very many walkers.
Oh, sure. So the Death Dread is a walker, and so basically walkers tend to be slightly beefier vehicles, like you know, your center vehicle. Maybe doesn't have a ton of health. Walkers tend to have a little more health. Death Dread is kind of on the flimsy end of walkers, so you see it only starts at 650 health, but that's vehicle health. So the thing with walkers is that they're like melee vehicles, and what makes that really powerful is that a lot of like good AV, like, you know, really powerful AV, anti-vehicle I should say, tends to be ranged. So it allows, you know, walkers tend to be able to tie up at least one source of ranged AV, and they tend to have the health to be able to get in there to go ahead and do that. So they tend to be very tough to deal with. They tend to require either multiple sources of ranged AV or snares or melee AV, you know, different kinds of things like that. So we're going to see from Aki here is he's going to try and get a Last Cannon Devastator out, and he's going to have to try and use that with Melta-Bomb Assault Space Marines to go ahead and try and deal with this Death Dread. But he's so far behind on tech right now, he's just halfway to getting to tier 2. He has no effective counter to this Death Dread right now. This Death Dread is basically able to walk around and do what it wants. And so now all of a sudden, this pure tier 1 army of GuruSkippy, we see here, finally a Burna has been upgraded. But still, this tier 1 army is incredibly effective still, because this Death Dread is just kind of running around doing whatever it wants to do. By the way, I should mention... Oh, go ahead.
Very important to note, walkers don't have rear armor hits, and I believe as of 1.4, every single walker has splash damage.
I'm trying to think if there's an exception. The Blood Crusher, it would be the only exception, I think.
Yeah, he does fall under the Demi Walker.
Or do Wraith Lords do it by default? I think they only do it with their special. I could be wrong now.
I believe they do. I think they added that all in as part of making walkers more viable.
Okay.
But yeah, we see it just tearing these Assault Marines up.
Yeah,
also,
so this is kind of also... Sorry, really interesting choice here. Oh, he hasn't made it yet. My apologies. I'm ahead of the game here. Sorry. We'll go with what you were going to say.
Yeah, I was just commenting on the effectiveness of the Death Dread, really.
Oh, yeah.
He's able to keep this whole army focused basically on it, just so GuruSkippy doesn't overwhelm his generators, and now GuruSkippy has taken over every single resource point on the map, other than Aki's natural requisition, which now he's working on.
And by the way,
still no big shooters, which is very interesting, but a weird boy coming out, which will solidify his lead at this point in time.
Yeah, you know, honestly though, the more I look at this, when you have 3 shooters against Space Marines, you know, big shooters aren't what's going to bring down these assault Space Marines, right? So, what's the point? You know, your regular shooters are good enough to deal with the shotgun scouts. They're good enough to counter those. So I think that's where he's kind of at with that. Okay, so what I was going to say here is that Aki, interesting, I don't understand this move from Aki here, by the way. He upgrades Sergeant on the Assault Space Marines before he upgrades Thunder and Lightning. I don't quite understand why he did that. Thunder and Lightning is the upgrade for Assault Space Marines. It gives them Melta-Bombs and Blind Grenades. Now here we go, here it is. This would allow them to go ahead and snare that Death Dread so that the Devastator, the Last Cannon Devastator Marine Squad here would actually be able to go ahead and take it out when it's in range of that.
I know that a lot of these newer AV units, Last Cannons were added.
Yeah, they snare.
Even else. Okay, yeah, just making sure that they have that mini snare.
Yeah.
I like the hide the boys.
Hide the boys here. And now, watch how this works exactly here. He's not going to be successful at taking out this Devastator Squad here, but now look, because he's got the Last Cannon Devastator Squad tied up, he can bring in this Death Dread. This Death Dread can now deal with the Assault Space Marines here pretty, you know, effectively. So you're going to see here, you know, these shooters getting eaten up here, the Weird Boy doing just enough there to keep him off, and now this is going to get a couple shots off, whereas before, though, the Death Dread wouldn't have been able to chase in, it wouldn't have been able to do anything. It's able to do quite a bit here now. Excellent Sun Bomb here, by the way. This probably could have been dodged by Aki, but you know, he's starting to get overwhelmed with shooters. This is kind of what we were talking about before, like why are there no big shooters? And this is because GuruSkippy has made an amazing observation that like if there are only shotgun scouts on the field, vanilla shooters are all you need to deal with that. And investing the resources in the big shooters, while they're not, well, the upgrade is only 75 requisition and 20 power per big shooter. It's still significant enough that, you know, you may as well put that towards a Weird Boy, Tier 3, Death Dread, whatever.
One might even say you don't really need big shooters against Space Marines unless, you know, you're being overwhelmed by tactical pressure, I suppose, because really you don't, big shooters don't really counter attacks or Assault Marines all too well. Sluggers do that job a little bit better.
Yeah, if you see, you know, I will definitely see, if you see Tactical Marines, they can be useful because of the aiming what's that ability. Will really help your Sluggers get into melee with them. It can just kind of help them get out of bad situations too. So it's just kind of nice all around to have at times. And also they actually will, you know, if you get like 2x, 3x on them, they will do quite a lot of damage to attacks. Whereas Vanillas will still just be piddling on the armor. But,
well, you could also upgrade one, spend 20 power,
yeah,
15, as opposed to a whole 60 for all of these 3 shooter boys just for the ability usage, which definitely would be useful against this Last Cannon Devastator, because then he'll take longer to fire his shots, allowing the Death Dread to maybe even close the distance, or
yeah, it's tough to get them to stand there and aim in what's that for too long though. For that, I think he's got enough other forces there right now for that. The one thing I did want to point out there was I mentioned that GuruSkippy, like, this build is really amazing in some ways, and yet he kind of let this tail off there at the end. But I like this flank with the Death Dread here up top. You can see his Sluggers are eating into the Assault Space Marines on the bottom, and then this Death Dread like goes around the side, rampages, which is its ability. It consumes a little bit of red, but it goes faster for a short period of time. Rampages around the side, flanks that Last Cannon Devastator, and ties it up in melee. That's the danger of walkers, is that you really have to be careful about you know, your AV, because if it's ranged AV, it can be tied up by the walker. But yeah, so I figured we could just stay on this like for a quick second, get to what you were talking about for a second there.
One thing I do want to mention though is Aki had the dominant victory points. He did a very good job of making sure the victory points were under his control, which is something Scots excel at since they move very fast, and on this map especially you can use a building to try to delay melee from killing you, and then the melee moves away, you retreat, and whatnot. But yeah, that Assault Marine loss just sealed the game in for GuruSkippy, as well as the fact that he had all the resources at some point in time for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that GuruSkippy is like very late in Tier 3, and you can't quite see it on the bottom bar, but there are knobs out. And like, if you look at the resource portion of the bottom bar, if GuruSkippy invests just a little more in generators, he'll get like another squad of knobs pretty soon. So that was one thing I really wanted to touch on really quick. I don't want to stay on the screen too long because we know what happens when we do that.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I want to say that GuruSkippy did an amazing job of pulling this off. Like, you know, he really identified that, again, you know, we talked about the shooters. All he needed to deal with these shotgun scouts, if that's what Aki was going to do. And then the thing with the other thing here too is we see that eventually, I think about like a minute or two ago, Aki finally was able to get Mastercrafted Bolter. We finally saw him able to use full auto like once. The rest of the game, though, his Apothecary is basically playing Nurse, running around, not really getting in melee very much because they're 3, you know, vanilla shooters, which against a regular Apothecary, unless it burns its heal, 3 vanilla shooters still do a fair amount of damage, especially against a single model squad. The big difference between big shooters and vanilla shooters, now there is a sizable DPS gap anyway, but the biggest difference is that big shooters drop most of the DPS onto damage per second, that is, onto 2 weapons in the squad as opposed to the entire squad. So for example, if you look at the shooter squads here, right, if I select just one of these and I look at them, there are 4 shooter models in the shooter squad right now. Each of them has the same weapon in it, so they all do the same damage. Now, if you can imagine, take a big shooter squad, you're actually going to swap out 2 of these models in that squad with models that are carrying big shooters. And the big shooters will always be the last 2 models remaining in the squad. So what effectively happens is that you have 2 things. Number 1, even as squad size decreases, damage per second doesn't get affected nearly as much. And then the second thing that you have happen is that on top of that, you also have the little bit of niceness, which is that each model is kind of picking their own target in Dawn of War 2, right? Like you have squads, they're pretty intelligent, they've got their own AI and stuff, so they'll pick their own target. So let's say that this whole squad right now is firing at the Apothecary, right? So all of them are going to fire at the Apothecary because that's what you told them to do. Now imagine they're firing at the scouts, though. They don't necessarily have to all fire at the same scout model in that squad, right? They can fire at any of the 3 models in that squad that are in there right now. But now if you take the big shooters, because there's more damage per second on each weapon, the 2 weapons, even though they won't necessarily fire on the same target, whatever target they are firing on is taking a lot more damage. So that's always something to consider as well. But anyway, you know, that didn't matter too much here, especially, you know, when you're targeting an Apothecary, your damage will be notable there. But anyway, so this whole, you know, build, though, Aki was tight for resources the entire game, and he really didn't get to do what he wanted to do. And we saw that that left GuruSkippy completely in control. My only complaint with GuruSkippy's play was that when he got this kind of far ahead, there was actually a sub. His on the right side here, his Weirboy was retreating at one point. He was upgrading Warpath while he was retreating, the Warpath upgrade, which is kind of like, he actually had the resource to do it like a while ago, and it's one of those things where you kind of should have known that he would need it at some point. It's just kind of one of those upgrades where, okay, he's trying to be upgraded light, but there are some things I feel like where obviously there are uses for that with his current force, so it would have been a good idea to go ahead and get that. And then he just kind of started it late. It didn't finish and ended up having to retreat it, whereas he might have been able to get out without having to retreat. But nonetheless, he got back out. It didn't hurt him too much. Likewise, you know, there's just a couple things where generators here, he had a bit of a buildup of requisition waiting for tier 3 at one point. Could have put down more generators to accelerate that. Could have gotten his knobs out a little bit faster. Could have gotten the second squad of knobs out faster as well. You know, obviously there is no second squad of knobs making right now, but there definitely could have been if this game went on longer. And especially since he didn't have victory point control, that's something to think about. Oh, my bad. Actually, he did. The victory points were just reversed.
Yeah. Another thing to note is, like I mentioned, the heavy tier 1 allowed him to get map dominance. On some maps, I would say that would be risky, simply because there aren't enough points and the map isn't big enough to warrant that much of a heavy tier 1. But this map is very good for backcapping. You can almost always get a squad or 2 running around the sides, not engaging anything and capping, simply because of the using terrain to block shots and whatnot. And GuruSkippy really just used that heavy tier 1 to his utmost advantage in taking over the map and then flanking and winning every battle, or like converging onto one point during the battle, which Space Marines usually have a centralized battle because they have so few squads.
Yeah, the one nice thing about triple scouts is that it does allow Space Marines to branch out a little more. But we saw here that GuruSkippy's build, because again, he adapted that starting 2x Slugga and 1x Shooter. which maybe was an initial skew just in case there was a tactical Space Marine in there, and then he could, you know, supplement accordingly. Because I know, like, as Commando Knob, you know, especially when I play 2v2s and stuff, you know, my build usually is going to skew towards 2x Sluggas, because, you know, unless I start pulling up the knife on my K-Knob, 1x Slugga, unless you get burn on it and you get a very favorable entrance, without spending a lot of red on Hide the Boys, can be very, very tough to go ahead and deal with tax, and you end up spending, you know, working on your shooters a lot to go ahead and do that task. So it's very nice having 2x, you know, at times, and then also you can always get, if you go for burn as you go ahead backdoor, it may well be that the second that Skippy saw that there was, you know, that Aki was going this 3x scout build, he was just like, boom, add the 2 shooters, have a shooter for every scout. Shooters now are doing the majority of the capping instead of Sluggas, which is something that's actually kind of odd for orcs. Usually you'll see Sluggas doing more capping than shooters, and that tends to work in Space Marine favor when they're coming up on the cappers. And of course, if Sluggas are finding Space Marines capping, if they're attacks or something, that can be bad for Space Marines. But like when scouts just happen upon Sluggas, it usually is good for the scouts and bad for the Sluggas. But, you know, anyway, now all of a sudden the dynamic just shifts massively, and, you know, it really worked his favor as far as map control goes, just as you said.
Yeah. So, replay number 2, I believe, is the Seawall or the Quest Heresy one?
Will be the Seawall one, but we're going to take a very short break first for about 30 seconds, so we'll be right back, guys. Alright, and we should be back, so hopefully. So we're booting up a replay now on Seawall Frontier. This is submitted to us by ibfreeekout. A little bit of background on this. He played in the GROS, so in the match of round of 128. My apologies there, guys. He played Helviz. They played at some Chaos Mirrors. ibfreeekout plays the Plague Champion. Helviz plays the Chaos Lord. So I think they had a best of 3 series. It went to 3 games. We have 2 of those games, the latter 2 games. Somehow I'm not surprised that they're the games that ended well for IB. But don't worry, he also included his next series, one of the games in the next series, which was against Edja. Now, some of you listening to this are privy to why that's important and know exactly what is going to happen in that replay, probably. But, you know, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look over these replays, we're going to analyze them, and we're going to try to help IB out. We're going to try and point out areas where he can improve, and maybe also, at the same time, we're going to give Helviz the benefit of, well, not, you know, the benefit of IB sending these in too, so I don't know if he's watching, but we'll also look at a couple of things that he did and see if we can improve those as well. So we're not going to be doing any stops because of the lack of a group stop feature. And we do have a little too much today to go through and do planned stops, but you know, we'll probably do a little bit of pausing at the end and kind of reminiscing like we did after the last replay. So I hope that's okay with you guys. If you're getting bored or something, tell us in chat.
Yeah, we do monitor chat, so if you have any comments to say, just say in the chat. We'll take them into consideration.
Alright, so
I am pausing 5. Have we seen the Plague Champion before?
That is a very good question, actually.
I know we've seen the Chaos Lord. At least
we have seen the Chaos.
Sure
we've definitely seen the Chaos Lord. I think we've done at least 1 or 2 kills. Oh, we had HQ 007. That's right. HQ 007 versus Kryzon, the Chaos Lord versus Warp Spider Exarch, aka Chaos Lord versus Phase Shift Abuse out the arse.
Yes, I do remember that game. Quick thing on the Plague Champ. He's a ranged hero. I don't know if he has a passive aura where, I mean, underneath him he has some green stuff. I have no idea if that does anything.
No, it doesn't do anything. The one aura that he passive effect that he does have is I believe when he's suppressed, he will move slower but fire at the same rate. So basically, you can if you're under the effects of a suppression platform and you're behind cover, you tend to be alright. Like, you can still combat it pretty straight up, so he's pretty nice for that, and among other things.
Quick mentions on his war gear that are, well, never mind. We'll get into it if we see it.
Yeah, actually, I don't think we're going to be seeing any war gear in like any of these games. So really quick overview on the Chaos, the structure of your average Chaos mirror, especially at lower levels. I've noticed where kind of I guess you can say this of like all mirrors almost. You know, and from a large variety of games, right? Like, you typically, it's tougher to see like the late game in mirrors at lower levels, and one of the reasons for that is there's just a lot of times so many mistakes that they magnify so much. And of course, a mirror is always just kind of this act of like, you know, you both have the same things available to you, you both have the same goals a lot of the time, and you know, you both have to just be more efficient going about it. And so, you know, of course, at very, very high level play, you can expect both players to be like just completely on the dime about everything, and you're talking about like something like 10th of a second is going to be making the big difference.
Important to note is that mirrors in this game, also your hero choice vastly changes how they can be played out. Sometimes you'll have completely different build orders for heroes depending on the matchup, and oftentimes a mirror will add a different dynamic to it depending on your hero choice.
Yeah, and so actually this is one really interesting about Chaos mirrors. So as let's get into here, one of the core goals, especially at lower levels of the Chaos mirror, no matter what hero you are, is that you need to get to tier 2 in time to deal with the opponent's Blood Crusher, because actually, despite what it seems in like other Chaos matchups, like Chaos doesn't have the most accessible of tier 2 AV outside of Zeech Havocs, which are actually pretty accessible, so kind of notable. But you know, as far as dealing with walkers, you know, you're looking at like Bloodletters or Plague Marines, which are all 440 requisition or above for a race that is very requisition heavy, and then they also have to give up a lot of their upgrades and stuff, which they're trying to do a lot of things the second they hit tier 2, and we'll see some of that in this.
My apologies again. Also, worships also change depending on the hero of the Chaos race.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to get to next. Yeah, so actually, you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Awesome.
The Heretic unit is the basic unit for Chaos. Their melee unit can be upgraded with grenade launchers. We've seen them before. They have a toggleable ability called Worship, and depending on your hero, it changes the effects of the Worship. Now, for instance, the Chaos Lord, it increases units' movement speed, which affects vehicles, I believe. At least it affects Blood Crushers. I'm not too sure about the tanks.
Yeah, it affects pretty much everything.
And it also increases the regeneration of demons, their HP.
Yeah, everything does. By the way, all warships increase the regeneration of demons, so both health and energy, as I recall.
So a lot of advanced Chaos Lord players can use Heretic Worship to just increase their Chaos Lord speed and kind of have them kite down, chase down units, tie them up, and also use in conjunction with Blood Crushers, just bum rush an enemy and then heal all the damage they've done.
Yeah.
Now the Plague Champion, his Worship increases health regeneration of normal units. I believe that might be it.
Yeah, it increases health regeneration of normal units, which is actually pretty significant. It's plus 0.5 buff, regen buff, which I think, from what I understand from Caleris and friends, actually translates to 5 health per second, because I think the regens are given in ticks, which is to say, I think there are 10 ticks per second is the way the game handles it. It's all getting a little technical, I'm sorry guys, but I think it ends up being a 5 health per second buff. Your standard health regeneration, I believe, is 0.5 health per second, so that's actually really significant, and you're going to see that. I don't know if we're going to see that in this game, but you will see that in mirrors when you have Chaos Space Marines just sitting there shooting at each other. When you have Heretics worshipping one set of, you know, the CSMs, obviously the ones that are getting healed while they're in combat are going to win. So that's really significant. So what you get to see as far as Chaos Lord versus Play Champion with the Worship is you get to see healing versus speed. Now the one thing, as you were kind of alluding to, for demons, there's no like extra bonus as far as like the demons don't heal any faster under Nurgle than they do under regular demon worship. or maybe they heal at Nurgle. Well, it doesn't stack, basically. The demon benefits don't stack with the Nurgle benefits. They just kind of get the one.
Also, if you could just give a quick rundown of shrines. Or do you want to unpause? And
yeah, let's unpause. I think we've paused long enough, and we're not going to see shrines in any of these games. Those are too late. I think we'll save that for when we see someone actually give us some interesting shrine usage. So, by the way, guys, if you're listening to this, sorry guys, you ever getting off of Dawn of War 2 radio? But anyway, if you guys are listening to this, if you have a replay that shows good usage of Chaos Shrines, please send that replay to us, myself, 5-star General on GameReplays.org, or you can give it to me, a 5* General. I'll put that in the chat for you guys. 1 second.
And my Game Replay's name is Lord Lokgar, or just type it out in chat. We monitor that during the show too. Just say, hey, I have a replay, get in touch with me somehow, and we will.
Yeah, basically. So that works too. Sorry, we're gonna go ahead and unpause this. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, and the music returned. Yay.
We do see both players going for Chaos Space Marine, so I'm very interested to see if we see what you were just describing, one squad being healed and the other squad not being healed, very, very early in the first few engagements.
So what was kind of interesting here, by the way, on Helva's side, we talked about the speed bonus that the warship provides for Khorne. Most players, especially a lot of high-level Chaos players, will actually URL removed, best mail provider. Gosh, I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, they will warship like right out of the spawn, so the Chaos Lord can actually get to capturing faster. The Chaos Lord is actually like speed 4.5 hero, so he's slower than your average hero. So giving him that extra boost out of spawn can really help you. Now here's his first encounter. I did my research. This is going to be kind of bad for ibfreeekout here. I'm not sure what's happening here. He's capturing, and we see that basically he's going to engage the enemy heretic second here. Whenever you have like units engaging like units, the ones that engage first are always going to win. And then also we see, boom, enemy Chaos Space Marines come in. All of a sudden that whole squad just evaporates. So moral of the story here, Lokgar, you can probably say it just as well as I can.
Don't engage and retreat too late.
Yeah, the second that you see that, if you don't know where your opponent's forces are, and you're going to engage in a mirror, like, especially a melee mirror, where getting out of that is incredibly tough. Don't do it. Just get out of there. Just either retreat, run away, do something that it is going to not do what just happened there. That's bad.
Yeah, you almost never want to engage the same unit, especially melee units with the chances of special attacks. If it's a one-on-one battle of the same unit, you almost always never want to engage that. You want to either run away, kite, buy time, do something other than engaging, because with special attacks you might either win that pretty handily, lose that pretty handily, or both sides will just take too many losses for it to even matter. Yeah,
but now we do see though IB is doing a pretty good job here. We saw there that he's kiting this Chaos Lord very, very, very well. He's leveraging the range facet of the play champion to its greatest advantage here. This Chaos Lord's not getting any support at all. And we saw that he kind of, not only did he kite the Chaos Lord, which is an immediate danger, right, but he also made sure to target the heretics, and that's absolutely huge. The reason why that's huge is because those heretics are 16 requisition per model. Every one of those that you can take out is bleeding your opponent. It's doing significant economic damage. Also here, this is a huge mistake from Helvis getting off this point to go ahead and try and deal with these Chaos Space Marines. Finish that decap. That's his natural requisition node.
That was so close too. Even just decapping it and then engaging in the battle would have gotten him so much farther economically.
Exactly. So, you know, and in mirrors, these are the kinds of things that will hurt you. They will kill you. They will lose you the game. So we see here, IB's getting in somewhat dangerous territory, though. He doesn't have any heretics. He can't warship here, and he's moving in here to. He couldn't see these heretics or this Chaos Lord. And now he's getting Doom blasted. He's losing one model, maybe losing more than one model. Now we are seeing he's doing a great job of bleeding these heretics, and that is the difference in his build so far, by the way. IB, from the outset, went for a 2x CSM build, whereas we're seeing that Helviz went for this 2x Heretic build. He has not done anything with the 2x Heretic build yet that has allowed him to move ahead of IB or anything here. Now we're actually seeing him going for this Combi Flamer. This is a really odd, weird choice because the Combi Flamer, yes, it will do more damage to these Chaos Space Marines. Lokgar, do you want to explain what the Combi Flamer is and what it does?
Yeah, the Combi Flamer is a War Gear upgrade for the Chaos Lord, obviously in Tier 1. It replaces his Bolter with a more powerful Bolter. It does significantly more damage per shot, and also gives him an ability that scorches the ground, dealing heavy DOT damage over time, to high model, low HP units like Heretics, but not so much the Chaos Space Marines. That the ability is really matters.
Yeah, so the ability isn't really going to help him here. I mean, see, again, more Heretic models lost. Let me explain that battle that happened there.
I will say this real quick, though.
Sure.
It can be used to deny cover, so smart usage is definitely worth it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be worth that investment this early on.
Yeah, it's 30 power. He's also upgrading Inspiring Champions and everything. And we see that basically ibfreeekout never replaced his Heretics. He just stuck to his guns here. He didn't spend, like, any power. He just went straight to Tier 2.
Not even any Eternal War, which is a very smart play, I feel like, because a lot of players
it's honestly, Internal War is oftentimes not worth it until Tier 2. It's 20, I think 20 or 25 power, and it's just kind of one of those things. If you get to Tier 2, you get that Blood Crusher out a little faster. Now we are seeing that Helviz is doing a decent job of getting there as well still, but he's getting there a little slower, and we'll see. Now the one nice thing about this Combi Bolter, the one nice thing about it, you mentioned it does more damage, more range damage, so it allows him to do more damage to these Chaos Space Marines, but we're seeing that it's not really making the difference between models dropping and models not dropping. Against Heretics, that will drop models left and right. Against Guardians, that'll drop models left and right. Against CSMs and the Play Champion, not so much.
Also, very good, very important to note about this Space Marine Play Champion down. That's a huge loss for ibfreeekout, but
yeah, this is very nice here.
Might go down 7 HP, but the Blood Crusher is coming out before Helviz is even Tier 2.
Yeah,
smart usage of this Blood Crusher will get him back easily back into the game. To note, the Chaos Lord does have the Kill the Weak ability right off the bat, which is has a slight wind-up time, but it's an AoE attack that has a life drain attached to it. And if ibfreeekout has no melee units, there's very little chance that he's ever going to land one of those. So the Chaos Lord is forced to either use Worship to close the distance, or even the Combi Flamer. But
honestly, I should actually, you touched on something perfect here, by the way. Worship. Where is it, Helviz? I'm sorry, but he's got 2 Heretic squads here, and all they've been doing for him the whole game. Yeah, he just killed the Play Champion. That's basically the most that his Heretic squads have done there, other than kind of the faux pas that IB had in the beginning with his Heretics, right? And we're actually going to see that IB is going to get his Justice Earth here. He's going to be able to take out this Chaos Lord with a very nice charge on retreat there. Again, send your complaints about that being Imba to, I don't know, relic@imba.com, whatever. I don't give a damn, personally. But anyway, though, what's been happening here is the Chaos Lord is very effective in melee against these Chaos Space Marines, right? And against the Play Champion. But instead, what we're seeing Helviz do is he's trying to get his Heretics in melee, and in trying to get his Heretics in melee, he's just kind of failing, and he's allowing the Chaos Space Marines, he's allowing the Play Champion, he's allowing all these things to pick off Heretic models, and just bleed him, when in reality, if he just worshipped, he'd allow the Chaos Lord to absorb most of the damage. If the Chaos Lord takes damage, right, it's not the end of the world. Because if the Chaos Lord takes damage, as long as he doesn't die, he's not losing models or anything. If he gets in melee, great. Then you can actually stop worshipping, and then that's one squad that's already tied up, right? Now you can go after the other squad. You can't really kite with one squad. It takes 2 squads to kite.
I also question Helviz's choice of Zinj Marines. I feel like Khorne Marines in conjunction with Khorne Worship would have been the better choice against this 2 Zinj Marine army that ibfreeekout has.
Yeah,
the way it is now, the plague. If ibfreeekout had some sort of Heretics, he could just worship and heal all of his Heretics, or all of his Chaos Zinj Marines back to almost full health, negating all these Zinj Marine damage.
I completely agree, and kind of looking at his stuff here, he doesn't really have the economy to do it, so unfortunately that loss is big, but we see his Blood Crusher still, just because of the additional damage that his Zinj Marines were able to do there, made the difference. But IB, if you're in the chat right now, I couldn't see there, and I thought about this a little belatedly, was your Play Champion repairing your Blood Crusher. If it wasn't,
he did use mucus discharge. I don't know if that heals Blood Crusher.
Yeah, that shouldn't heal the Blood Crusher. But yeah, by the way, that is a very nice. Not in that battle. Okay, yeah, just at the end there. So my biggest thing there in that last battle, like, that Blood Crusher won by the barest of margins, but it came down to, and you kind of, this is what I said, you know, in the beginning of this, as part of the, what do you call it, the giant Dawn of War 2 radio, right?
Yeah.
You know, what I said was that it comes down to the Blood Crusher most of the time for a lot of Chaos Mirrors, and we saw that IB got his out first. He was able, the nice thing about getting your Blood Crusher out first, by the way, is it allows you to start dealing with the rest of your tier 2. We saw, like, he got the 2x Siege Marines, he got this war gear, he got the Feated Armor, he got the Mucus Discharge. Mucus Discharge, by the way, is a great piece of war gear, especially for mirrors, especially since they buffed it, because what it allows you to do is it's basically just to heal in a small area around the play champion. So it heals him for like 100 health, and it heals around him for like 35, 45. Not a massive heal, right? But in those battles, it's like instant. So like in those battles against other Chaos Space Marines, it can just turn the tide. And we saw it turn the tide there against other Chaos Space Marines. But anyway, what I was getting to before, asking the question about... yeah, by the way, guys, Dawn of War 2 Retribution is only like $30, maybe less. And the CE, I don't know if they still offer the CE, though. But anyway, Dawn of War 2 Retribution is all you need for multiplayer, and it's like only $30. So if you're StarCraft...
You got all 6 races, and all 6 new campaigns, too, which is an amazing deal.
And Last Stand, which I know, like, if you're coming... Actually, you know what? If you're coming from, like, a Warcraft and StarCraft background like I do, you know, you probably will appreciate Last Stand, because it's kind of like... you know, like Dota, like, you know, you've got like Dota and like Warcraft 3 and stuff that came out of there, and you had like all those games like Han and LoL and whatnot that kind of took that to the next level. And like Last Stand is this mode for Dawn of War 2 that sort of takes some of like the Warcraft 3 survival maps, like the hero survival maps, and just takes them to this next level. It gives them like leveling, and you get like war gear, like out of game war gear and stuff, and it's really pretty awesome. I like spending some time in it. I mean, obviously it's not as awesome as the proper multiplayer component, right? But it's an awesome time waster. So
it's definitely good when you're feeling frustrated at the ladder.
Yeah, you get
kill some Tyranids and be done with it.
Yeah, you get your money's worth. But anyway, though, so kind of where I was going all this. You know, there are 2 ways to help your Blood Crusher in battle. One is by worshiping it. The second is by healing it. Plague Marines should have been healing, you know, repairing this Blood Crusher in that battle. That would have, like, it barely turned out in IB's favor, but it, like, would have definitely, no doubt, don't even ask about it, been in his favor had that been done. But anyway, do you have anything to add to Lokgar? I think that's...
I would have also, yeah, like I said, the Siege Marine choice on Helviz's choice, Helviz's part kind of confused me. I think a Khorne Marine would have been more welcome in that battle, because he would have negated one of the DPSs from the Siege Marines, which might have allowed his Blood Crusher to survive, because he would have had 1 squad of heretics worshipping at least. That would have given him a little bit of regeneration on the Blood Crusher, and maybe allowed him to win that battle.
Yeah, you know, actually, I really agree with that. That was something that I didn't pick up on at all. And yeah, because the Khorne Marines, by their nature, by the way, you guys who don't know what Khorne Marines are, Chaos Space Marines have 2 upgrades. You can see here, this is the Siege upgrade. In Tier 2, yeah. Yes. This is the Siege upgrade. Actually, there's an aspiring champion on one of these squads. That's why there's one who doesn't have a helmet here, and who looks kind of like Eliphas. Anyway, though, there's no base building, but there is macro. We are actually talking about a lot of macros, so we'll go through all that today. You'll pick up on it. But anyway, no, I completely agree with your suggestion for Khorne Marines. What they are is, again, there's 2 upgrades. You have the Siege upgrade, which basically makes Chaos Space Marines into like ranged demons. They just do a lot of ranged damage very quickly. It's a very nice ranged specialty for them. Infernal bolts are kind of like plasma, so they sort of follow that kind of trend, and they actually do like 0.1 damage, or my bad, 0.1%. 10% damage to vehicles. So that's why in this Blood Crusher fight, they were actually kind of instrumental in swinging it one way and the other. But on the other side of things, you have the Khorne Chaos Space Marines. Khorne Chaos Space Marines are basically Chaos Berserkers. They wield big axes and stuff. Chain axes, yeah, they wield chain axes. They're really awesome. They get a speed boost from 5 to 6, so they're quite fast, actually. That's before...
A huge charge bonus, too, I believe.
And that's before Warship. And you have Khorne Warship backing that up if you're playing as the Chaos Lord. They're available to all flavors, though.
And the Sergeant has a little Melta Pistol, which outputs a little bit more DPS for the Blood Crusher, too.
Yeah, so basically, you know, the Khorne Chaos... The Aspiring Champion, who's a.k.a. the Sergeant, yeah, gets that Melta Gun. So he's able to, if you stand in range mode, you can kind of do some nice little bit of AV. You probably wouldn't do that in this situation. You just have them go into melee with these Siege Marines, and they would tear them up in melee. The Siege Marines would have to kite them. In the process of kiting them, you know, when you have the Warship, you know, because Helviz still had his Heretics, and he is the Chaos Lord, he's got Khorne Warship. He has the Warship advantage, and his Blood Crusher is faster and regenerating, so he would have been able to keep up with IBs, get some free shots in. He would have been able to win the battle, probably. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, he wouldn't have to worry about that Blood Crusher tying up his Siege Marines and all. Also, yeah, you aren't going to be able to kind of kite Warship Khorne Marines. You're always going to take damage, I feel like, from the charge bonus and whatnot. So yeah, Khorne Marines definitely would have been a good choice.
Yeah, so, alright, let's end Dawn of War 2 radio. I like that, I like that way of putting it. By the way, now, I would not say that Dawn of War 2 is at all like Rolling Conflict, because Rolling Conflict I felt like didn't have a real macro component to it. Like, you just had like a set pool of points, right? And your army could consist of anything up to that amount of points. But then, like, you know, if you lost stuff, it was just a matter of time before those regenerate. Otherwise, everything was centered around, like, controlling points, which are basically victory points. That's it. There were no economic points. There's no power or anything like that. Dawn of War 2 really has a full-fledged resource system, and it has a full-fledged macro component. It's just streamlined so that there's no base building in it, right? But there is still macro. That's a huge... Like, that's why Rolling Conflict is basically an RTT, and Dawn of War 2 is an RTS. Just responding to the chat there. Anything to add to that, Lokgar?
I actually have not played World in Conflict, so I have absolutely nothing to add, but don't underestimate the macro component of Dawn of War 2. A lot of players do, and one of the purposes of the dailies is to educate players on the macro component, so I believe we've done that the first week with that, what, 40-minute pause?
Yeah, we actually paused. For those of you guys that do not know the history of the Dawn of War 2 dailies here, I think I spent about an hour. Honestly, it may have been an hour. It was something ridiculous on a pause screen, just kind of like we were on there, except for an hour and without moving the camera around nearly as much. In the middle of a game, sat there and talked about every possible thing I could talk about that had to do with the resource component, the requisition component of Dawn of War 2's macro. Just one resource. I spent at least 40 minutes, if not an hour on it, and I still felt like I hadn't covered half of it. That's how deep the game is on that front, and it is the #1 mistake of newer players. Even experienced players make this mistake, to just completely disregard that component of the game.
For sure. And before history repeats itself,
yeah.
We are pausing 5 on Quest Heresy.
Oh, are we actually? I thought we were going to do the... we got a short 30-second break, I thought.
Oh, right, well...
I'll load it up during the 30-second break.
Alright, my bad.
It's alright.
I'm just trying to confirm this is the next replay, though.
It is indeed the next replay. Well, there are 2 Quest Heresy replays coming up, so... But, yeah, one of them is the one... You've got one of the right ones, so...
Yes.
We will be back in about 30 seconds, and yes, it is the same engine as... Well, it's technically Essence 2.0, but it's basically the same engine as Company Heroes, yeah.
No DirectX 10, though. Aw.
Alright, and we are back, I do believe. So, this match now is going to be taking place on Quest Heresy, a little bit of a change of pace as far as maps go. Lokgar, really quickly, I want to get to one thing that I completely forgotten about the play champion, which is kind of important. He's a ranged hero, and the bolter that he uses is actually it shoots like damage over time bullets.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I sort of wanted to mention that, but I had no idea if they changed that or not.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
You can focus down turrets or hive nodes actually very well. If we ever see a hive node, I'll go explain that in detail. But that really shocked me when I discovered that.
Yeah. So let me explain really quickly the damage over time bullets. So, you know, your average gun just shoots, does its damage, and it's done. But damage over time is, you know, you take the initial damage, and then there's some other damage that, like, you know, every X seconds or X ticks, right, will do blah damage to, you know, health. So, the play champion, I don't know the exact figures. I think it does, like, 5 DPS, I think, over.
Yes. He does very... Well... As far as I was aware, he did very little normal damage, and most of his damage was transferred instead to the damage over time effect.
No, he actually does a decent amount, but it's low. If you compare it to like the Tech Marine and the Commando, if you compare it directly to other ranged heroes, it's low. But if you just look at it in and of itself, it's actually pretty decent amount of damage per second by base attack. But yeah. He makes up the difference with the damage over time. The interesting thing about that is I do not think the damage type for the damage over time is the same as the damage type for his...
It isn't. I can pretty much prove that with hive nodes unless they change that. Just because... Okay, hive nodes are a Tyranid building that the Ravener Alpha can place, and they have an ability that releases a cloud of spores, which 1 damages enemy units and 2 reduces any sort of range damage within the cloud, and yet the Plague Champion's Bolter Fire will do full damage within the 2 units within the cloud, or at least what appears to be full damage, or a lot of damage, basically.
Okay. Yeah, it's also really good at killing stuff on retreat, because I don't think it's like, if you shoot things on retreat, usually with ranged weapons, usually they'll do less damage to the retreating unit. I don't believe damage over time is affected at all, so it actually can skirt your retreat timings a lot, because you'll think that, oh, I'm fine, I don't need to retreat yet, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, whoa, I'm retreating, I'm still taking damage, uh-oh, I'm down to 0 health.
Which is especially effective against heretics, because high model, low HP.
Yep.
Anyway.
But yeah, anyway, so just something to watch. It also can make him good against heavy infantry, I believe, because, again, I don't think that they're like heavy infantry armor, which would usually help them against bullets. I don't think it helps them against damage over time. So, while it is arguably worse against some things, it is certainly better against other things from what we've observed. I will look up the numbers remind me to look up the numbers on Dow2 info.
Of course. Which, actually, I'll wait till we unpause to make a note.
So 5, 4. I'll start the countdown now.
Right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
For those who don't know, Dow2 info, I believe, was really recently updated with a lot of figures that were missing. A new patch was just previewed on the community.Dawn of War 2 site, so pretty soon it'll be a little bit obsolete, but they have most of the information up there, so if you want to clarify anything we say on the show, go to www.dow2.info.
Actually, don't put the www in there. It's just dow2.info, that's it. I think if you put the www in there, it will actually scream at you. I could be wrong.
I bet. I just have it bookmarked. Oops.
It's alright.
But we see Helviz going for the same exact build. I don't know if this was game 1 or game 2 of the series.
Actually, we saw game 2, and this is game 3. What happened in game 1 was that I basically Helviz fast-tacked with probably the same build, and IB actually tried to get like a Havoc and stuff, and tried to not fast-tack, and got rolled with a Blood Crusher, as I recall. He will correct me in chat if I am wrong.
Yeah, you know, that I can understand that. 2 heretics and, you know, a Chaos Space Marine, you do want some sort of suppression in there in many situations, but in a mirror, a Chaos Mirror, I would definitely recommend fast taking the Blood Crusher first.
Well, the Havoc can be good. I've certainly seen really good usage of it in Play Champion mirrors, as where it really comes in when you both have the heal. So that's where it makes probably the biggest difference that I've seen. Okay. Yeah, so he said that he was able to take out the Blood Crusher, but he lost way too much in doing so. Anyway, We got some Battle Micro here, very good Warship heal here. Chaos Space Marines and Melee will actually take out like unupgraded Heretics pretty easily, right? Particularly with heal. Like CSMs are kind of beastly in Melee, just like
almost
Tax
already
are.
full HP too.
Yeah.
Which is, phenomenal. I think they're healing a little bit quicker now that they're in the green stuff of the Chaos or Plague Champion. I don't know for sure.
Oh, I want to point this out really quickly. Look at where these Chaos Space Marines are. They're in front of that piping there. That was kind of a misplacement there by ibfreeekout. You really have to watch where you put your CSMs. You've got to watch what cover they're in, what cover they're behind and stuff. Because when that Chaos Lord came in to go ahead and kill the weak, he could not dodge like backwards, which would be the ideal place to dodge. He had to try and go around the pipe, which is something he really didn't want to have to do there. So you've got to watch where your units are. I know sometimes they'll go to the annoying spots, but just exert some extra micro and you fix it.
One thing that Helviz is doing that I would like to critique, he's going for the quick gen bash with the Heretic squad. Very good like usage of sneaking them around. I personally would have gone for a requisition point.
Yeah.
I believe that a requisition point would have hurt ibfreeekout more. In that here we see the range damage reduction is really helping these Heretics gen bash. They're taking almost no damage from these Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, you know,
in most situations they would just be slaughtered.
Now that I think about it, you also see that with Hormigons too. That's why probably one of the reasons why Hormigons are such effective gen bashers. Now I want to point out really quickly, we've got to watch the power game here, right? Because we're talking about fast teching. Already we see Aspiring Champion on one Heretic squad, and we saw grenade launchers on another Heretic squad, and we see that is the biggest reason here for the gap in power between ibfreeekout and Helviz. You know, it was kind of even until, like, you know, okay, IB just got these generators up. These generators just got up, right? So before then, actually, Helviz was pulling in just a little more power because he had gotten his node and first generator up. Even though he didn't have this captured, IB was kind of ahead at the beginning because he got his node and he captured the his cap order was all power. But yeah, I completely agree with you for going for the requisition. If Helviz had gone with his Heretic for a requisition node there, I'm not sure if IB would have backcapped that. And also, he would have had to have spent time backcapping with a squad that would not have been on the field of battle.
It looks like that Heretic squad didn't actually take damage from the damage over time. I think maybe the damage over time only continues to affect the model if the model was hit with the bullet prior to retreating.
We'd have to definitely study it to see exactly what it does.
Yeah, I don't know. That really warrants some looking into. But one note about the grenade launchers is they can be fired over these walls. So you see on Quest Heresy, there's tons of these walls. They block shots. Grenade launchers can go over them. They aren't very effective against Chaos Space.
That's the problem. That's the problem I have with it. Really, is that especially against a Nurgle player, a Play Champion player, you have Warship to offset what these grenade launchers are going to do to your CSMs. So they're not a very good choice in my opinion. We see a Havoc coming out now, and I have a little bit of an issue here with IB's response to this, which, number one, okay, that has to be retreated. Good, gets that retreated. This now, just retreat that squad, alright? This squad on the far right, the top right squad, right, is kind of far enough away that it probably won't take any losses, but this closer one is taking losses and just all sorts of not good stuff. You don't want to you don't want to give free requisition away there. He managed to get one squad away, but that's it.
Especially when you're in the critical phase of just upgraded to tier 2, you want to get that blood pressure out as soon as possible. One unnecessary loss could delay it for too much, especially if you're not too sure where your opponent is tech-wise. A lot of players, I feel like, just need to be more aware of how much power your enemy spent and whatnot.
Yeah, you always have to be aware that, you know, even though he's got this Havoc and he's got these grenade launcher Heretics and, okay, 10 piercing damage over 5 seconds, by the way, is apparently what that does. Anyway, though, so we've got 25 power for the Aspiring Champions, 30 power for the Havocs, and 20 for the grenade launchers. But relatively even generators the whole game. The thing is that once you get to a full generator farm on each side, which is what we have now, you kind of get to this point where even if you tech to tier 2 ahead, teching to tier 2 takes 75 seconds. If you're pulling in, right now Helviz is getting 49 power per second. You can see Helviz is going to make up like over 50, maybe 60 power in the time that it takes just to tech the tier 2, let alone get the Blood Crusher out. So now if he goes for a defensive anti-Blood Crusher build instead of a direct counter Blood Crusher build with Blood Crusher, there could be a bit of an issue. But we're going to see it's going to be a GG here. But it just kind of goes back to being a little bit careful, right, with your units when you're going to tier 2 so that you don't all of a sudden lose that advantage. Anything else that you had to say on this?
I don't think he should have upgraded his heretics. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. I don't think there was any need for this firing champion. Worship goes through in quotation marks walls.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see more worship with heretics using the shot blocking walls because the double chaos space marine build that ibfreeekout is doing does a lot of damage to heretics, but using those shot blocking walls and using worship to your advantage would have been very effective in letting the Chaos Lord dish out his damage that he needed to dish out.
Yeah, so again,
that is my spiel, basically.
Yeah, again, I agree there. So I'm just double checking my little bit of talking points here. Alright, so one of the things here in the battle micro, I think we kind of glossed over because we were talking about economics at the time. But there were heretics, melee heretics that were trying to get in on, I'll get all up in IB's face, basically. Yo, dog. They were basically near the play champion, they were like chasing him, but the two CSMs were just able to kind of sit back and kite them. It was one of those situations where the play champion was trying to run away, and in all honesty, heretics are very good at melee. And we've certainly seen in other casts, and this cast maybe even just how much damage they can do. But it was one of those times. I'll let him go ahead and watch himself. Maybe what I'm talking about. I kind of wish I was able to point it out when it happened. But he can go ahead and look at it. It was one of those things where he should have just turned around with the play champion and just meleeed them right back, because his play champion would have survived. His dual CSMs were doing so much DPS that they were just picking off models left and right. And by trying to get them to chase him, he was actually doing less damage because his play champion wasn't meleeing anything, right? And a melee play champion still does a decent amount of damage, even without melee weapons. And the other issue again with it was that they were a little bit easier to break off, because again, if you're in melee with something, when it tries to retreat, you do bonus. There's 30% bonus damage you do to melee. Melee does 30% bonus damage to retreating units, my bad. That's a better way to put it. So, I guess the other way to put it, as opposed to range does 50%, so 50% reduction. So if range does 50% less damage to retreating units, melee does 30% more damage to retreating units. If you just turn around and melee them there, then you're going to end up doing more damage, you're going to kill more models, you may even wipe the squad in a situation like that. So again, it's really tough to show this on here now because we were talking about so many things when it was live, but it's one of those things I want IB to go over in his own time, look back on later. Let me go see if I got any other notes real quickly, because we do have a little bit of time here. So watch. Right, okay, I think I got everything else here. That should be about it for this one. You've got anything else to add?
I think that's good, so we're going to do a commercial break and go to Edged versus ibfreeekout on Quest Heresy, I believe.
Yep, so I will start that in... Just let this... Okay, there we go. Starting that now. Alrighty, so here we are, we're back. This is 5-star General, by the way, guys, just so you know.
Lokgar. If you see Krakenhead in chat, that's me. I used to cast for Icy Cup under the name of Kraken, so that was a while ago. I believe when StarCraft 2 was first released. We tried doing Dawn of War 2 at one point. Just thought I would get that anecdote out of the way. Quick shout out to Alu, simply because I can.
Alright, Ollie Duck, I will try to accommodate that. I'm not quite sure exactly what you want me to do to let you see units dying better, but I'll point a couple out when they die.
Don't pay attention to the health bars. Pay attention to the individual like people, basically.
Yeah.
This game has models, squads instead of just individual units. So it's more important to pay attention to how many people drop dead, basically. And you can see little red numbers come up from their bodies.
Yeah, the red numbers are the easiest way to discern when something has died. But yeah, basically, so I guess we could do a little quick thing about Dawn of War 2 there in general is that, you know, you have two kind of key concepts in Dawn of War 2 as far as like units go. Your average unit is actually a squad, and a squad is composed of a certain number. It depends on the squad, right? How many are in it? Like if we look at this Guardian squad here, there are 5 members in it. So each of these members is basically independent. They're all affected individually by the things on the battlefield.
They all have their own stats too.
Yeah.
So if you do look up Dawn of War 2 DAO2.info, I believe most of the stats is per. If you go to the actual unit, it will be per squad. But if you go further into weapons, armor, and all of that, it will.
Yeah,
be
usually
per
unit. Yeah, per model, because that's really what matters when you get down to it. Like everything is simulated at a per model level. You control at the per squad level for the most part. Yeah. Anyways, so
So for instance, if you say like this squad does say 30 DPS, if it has 8 members with very little HP each, honestly, it doesn't really matter that the squad does 30 DPS. What matters is how many models you can lose before the DPS gets so low that it loses all sorts of effectiveness.
Yeah, so then you also, of course, have your heroes, and there are other single model units too and vehicles. So these are kind of a little more traditional. Heroes, when they die, they don't ever fully die. You can resurrect. They'll just like stay on the field, like they look like they're knocked out or something. You can pay to revive them. Depending on their level, they cost more to revive initially, but that price will drop down to 250 over time. 250 requisition. Heroes never cost power to revive. But 250 requisition is always kind of big anyway, so most players will wait for the cost to go down to 250 requisition rather than get the hero up sooner, but on rare occasion they will pay the premium. Anyway, so you know, they never technically die. There's some abilities and get them up too, but they'll usually spawn back at your base as opposed to on the field of battle where they died. One of the few exceptions to that is Lariman's Blessing, which is a global ability for the Apothecary that costs 125 for red and basically just resurrects them on the spot, and any allies too.
Also, you can go to our YouTube, I believe youtube.com/ICCup. We have all the dailies up to date uploaded.
Yeah.
You can go back and watch the first few. We explain a lot of these mechanics more in depth, especially economy, and it's just something you should want to check out if you're more interested in this game.
Yes, and I know we've definitely had some more requests to talk a little bit more about damage types and stuff too, so that's probably some of the more advanced stuff that we'll probably get into a little later on. We'll probably have to work on getting a cast together to do that. A little bit tougher because we'll have to get some overlays and stuff. But we've got about 15 minutes left, and we do want to take questions at the end. So let's go ahead and get this rolling in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So
one thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing right off the bat is Edge's hero, the Warlock. He starts off with an AOE ability called Destructor, which is very devastating against Heretics. So this 2x Heretic build, ibfreeekout has to be able to dodge those, or he's going to incur a lot of losses very quickly and very early potentially, especially when they're just group capping. You can see these Heretics are so blobbed up right now. A Destructor in the middle of that would do devastating amounts of damage. Yeah,
and we will actually get to see that in this game. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and watch this. By the way, this is a little interesting that Edge is playing Warlock. Throughout most of the tournament, he played Warp Spider Exarch, and I'm not sure. Actually, I didn't see him play as any Tyranids, but oh yeah, I did once when he ran them into Ravener Alpha. But
also, Destructor does do piercing damage, so if you're behind cover, you should be good. Just as a little interesting tidbit for players who didn't know, or in melee, you should be good too.
Yeah, so we're just gonna kind of sit here and watch this Warlock here, watch this Destructor go down. We're gonna see if IB can detect this in time here. He's really got to watch the mini map for this big kind of super circle here. Now here goes Destructor. Here goes Destructor. Just a little late. You see he does the proper response. Again, it's just a little late there. The proper response is to Warship, and but you know, you've got to time it like perfectly. Unfortunately, there he wasn't quite able to do that. He is Edja is a very skilled opponent. So this is a very uphill battle for IB, who is also a great player himself. But you know, I think he himself will tell you that he's not, you know, maybe quite at pro level or anything. But a very nice job here, knocking back these Banshees with a grenade launcher. Now, the issue with I have this here, these Chaos Space Marines and the Play Champion have to be focusing these Banshees, and these grenade launcher Heretics now have to back away from the Play Champion, but they're not. They don't get any distance, and now all of a sudden they can't kite, the Play Champion can't kite. The Warlock has come out of left field after decapturing, or actually I should say completely capturing Requisition Node. These Chaos Heretics are just sitting here, Chaos Space Marines are sitting here in melee with this Warlock. IB, you've got to work on your battle micro there. You've got to get these Chaos Space Marines cannot just sit there. They can't take that model loss. And meanwhile, again, the go ahead.
One thing he could have done is force meleeed the Chaos Tacticals into the Guardian squad.
Yes.
Really, the default Warlock attack is nothing to worry about for Chaos Space Marines, as long as you're moving and don't let them get that many hits for free. Melee the Guardians, you will beat them in melee. They won't be outputting their full DPS, and your units will be in melee. And I think even ranged units benefit from the melee damage or the range damage reduction, because we saw the Destructor go off against the grenade launcher Heretics who were engaged with the Banshees, and they barely took any damage from it.
Yeah, it was Destructor. I think it was because they might have been near that cover there, by the way. Destructor
Chaos attacks very aggressively, and also we see the grenade launchers going over the walls, which is very effective against Guardians.
Yeah.
Just had to get that out.
Also they're basically like you have to be a little careful. Again, they're just a little late. But anyway, Rev is going with this. Oh, you have to be very careful here, by the way, IB, because if you look, he's got Merciless Witchblade. Luckily, the Warlock here did not pop any special attacks. But if that Warlock pops a special attack, then that entire Heretic squad could be like gibbed in just 1 or 2 special attacks very quickly. Like Hormigons have the same problem facing him, so you really have to watch out for that.
I'd recommend using whatever that suicide ability is. It's not Doom
Blast.
Blast.
It is Doom Blast. Yep.
Use that, suppress him, and then use the Chaos Space Marine, Chaos Tax, and grenade launchers to put on a little bit of range damage.
Yeah, and especially when you've got
using that.
Sorry, my bad. The Play Champion there is actually really good for that too, because of the damage over time.
Yeah, and then the melee Heretic squad could have engaged the Guardians for a few seconds, and then come back and then use Doom Blast again to suppress the Warlock. Something like that would have, you know, saved him a little bit of time, maybe gotten a few models off the Guardian squad and whatnot.
Yeah, so I'm really quickly kind of going back to what we were saying before about engaging the Guardians in melee with, by the way, you can use either the Play Champion or the Chaos Space Marines. The Force Melee there would have been perfect, only though because of the Howling Banshees had already been going after the Grenade Launch Heretics. Unfortunately, we see a very nice dodge there.
The Plague Champ comes out of cover to, nice Destructor destroying the Heretics, and the Banshees finish it off very quickly. And the Plague Champion will go down on retreat.
This is just the end.
Do not move your Plague Champion out of cover if he's being engaged by ranged units. Very rarely is that a good idea. If you're going to force melee and then saw the Banshees, I can understand that, but please move him back to cover. He does very well in cover, and you just saw him get torn up by the range damage outside of cover.
Yeah, again, it kind of goes back to what I was trying to say there. Was right before that battle came up, unfortunately, was, you know, meleeing Guardians is a good thing, but you've got to take care of their support first, right? You can only do that when you don't have Banshees up your ass. And
or even a Warlock, for that matter.
Yeah, well, especially now that the Warlock has his Merciless Witchblade here, that's a pretty big danger. Okay, watch the Heretics here. The shield goes up. They funnel the Heretics. You see these Guardians aren't even focusing the Heretics because they know what's going to happen. He tries to do the right thing, but this grenade is so perfectly centered, right? So perfect a grenade toss that IB is just, you know, he loses the Aspiring Champion, and he loses 4 models off of the squad. The aspiring champion, by the way, is the leader, and usually very tough to kill. But because he's at the center of that warship formation, he actually will die very quickly to a grenade like that. So just so much concentrated damage.
I didn't even realize you could use shields to funnel units. Oh, that is completely a new revelation for me. It is cover. Units have to go around it, and they can go one of 2 ways, and chances are with a big squad like Heretics, they're going to go both ways. And
well, actually, you saw here with what Edge did, actually, he's using, like, this shield is as far as it can be to the left side, so the only real gap is to the right, and there's just a very small funnel there. I mean, even if, you know, even if he were a less skilled player, right, at this point, like this setup already, just where the Heretics have to come, any grenade toss to the right of that shield is going to hit something in a Heretic squad and do a sizable chunk of damage.
My bad, I was reading the chat, so I got really distracted.
Oh, okay. I'm like...
A lot of chat apparently now. This is awesome. I like reading chat.
I love reading chat too. It's awesome to see that there are people out there. People exist. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, some dailies we do, there's not even one person saying anything in the chat. It's very disheartening, I believe.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit. You always like to see, you know, some life out there. But yeah, so I just kind of want to go really quickly back though to you know, Banshee again. Banshees versus CSMs generally isn't going to turn out too well for your Chaos Space Marines, right? So you want to be aware about engaging in that. So when you're, because we were given that advice to force melee the Guardians, but I really want to make sure that we give that advice with the caveats that when you have the Warlock with Merciless Witchblade and you have Banshees out there, you have to account for those too. Now the nice thing here is that for ibfreeekout, until he lost his army, he had the Grenade Launcher Heretics, he had regular Heretics, so he had a couple of things he could do, and he even had Feated Armor on his Play Champion here, which gives him the Unholy Stench ability. That actually I'm going to talk a little bit about too, because that could have been used a little bit better this game. Anyway, so you know, once you've accounted for the Banshees, once you've accounted for the Warlock, you can go ahead and force melee on these Guardians. Now you do have to watch out. By this point, Edja has battle equipment on them, which means grenades, which means grenade spikes, which means you got to be really, really careful about that, especially if you're facing Edja, who basically proved himself the master of grenades this GameReplays Open Season tournament. Good God, he massacred Vindicare X with grenades. We may do something on that game. I'm not sure. It would just kind of I'm not really sure, but it was a really fun game to watch. But it was also just a clinic on how to use grenades. I mean, I'm not so sure if there's anything that could necessarily be learned from it with a daily, but it may be up there. I'm not sure if you saw that game, Lokgar, but I was casting it, so.
Quick. Lemon Ryan asks, what's the best way to avoid grenades, if you don't mind me taking this question?
Oh, go ahead, go for it.
Impact. Every unit that throws a grenade, you'll see the wind up. Just be aware of the mini-map. If you see a lone dot coming towards your capping squad, or a squad you know is upgraded with grenades, since the indicators of the squad themselves will have a little grenade icon on them. You'll see one model, usually the sergeant, if it's like a scout squad, or, you know, any guardian or whatever, but you'll see them pull their hand back, you know, as if to throw a grenade, and then you'll see the grenade fly through the air, and it has a quick 1-second timer.
Yeah.
If you can see that animation start to play and move away from where you think he's going to throw it, that's the best way. But a lot of good players will also try to predict where you're going and throw the grenade that way, wherever they think you're going to try to dodge.
Also, if you are using Heretics, what we saw IB did was he worshipped. Worship is an effective way to dodge grenades because it spreads your Heretics out. The reason why Heretics are, besides from the fact that they're high model, low health per model squad, right, which makes them very susceptible to area effect. If you, unfortunately, it's very tough to see right now because we don't have any full member Heretic squads out, but if we did, what you would see, and if you remember seeing them before, they all pack themselves very tightly together. They're very tightly packed units, so any sort of area effect that hits one of them is likely going to affect all of them. So by using Warship, you see that they spread into that big circle, and then all of a sudden, you know, at best, maybe a grenade will hit 2-3 of them. The reason why we see Edges hit like a little more of them because they were still spreading out at the time. The Warship was slightly late. But in any other circumstance, if you do it perfectly, then you know, it would be fine. I will go ahead and answer the Chaos Tier 3 one.
Right.
Unless you want to.
Oh, I said all right.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Edja, how you doing? You see him in the chat? Okay, I'm going to answer the Chaos Tier 3 one. Chaos Tier 3 is not actually weak. The thing is more or less that Chaos has a lot of things to spend resources on in Tier 2, and they don't have a big reason to go Tier 3 either. They've got a lot of great stuff in Tier 2. You've got both flavors of Chaos Space Marines fully upgraded by that point. You have Bloodletters, which are pretty decent at what they do. They're a little fragile, but in certain situations they can really shine. You have Plague Marines, which are incredibly durable, great sources of anti-vehicle. And you've got Blood Crushers, who are just, you know, even though they're kind of fragile, they're one of those walker units that, with the proper warship and the proper support, you don't necessarily need anything more. But if you do need something more, you've got the Chaos Dreadnoughts, which are quite beefy, and unlike the Space Marine Dreadnought, which has a Dark Age of technology upgrade in Tier 3 to kind of boost its performance there are no Tier 3 upgrades for the Chaos Dreadnought. In fact, very few things for Chaos require Tier 3. In fact, even very few pieces of war gear anymore require Tier 3, outside of the Subjugation war gear for the Chaos Sorcerer. So the only real reasons for Chaos to go Tier 3 is the Chaos Predator and the Great Unclean One. The Great Unclean One costs a crap ton, so, you know, it's a super unit, so it should cost a crap ton. And so getting to it's a little tough, and then once you get it out, it's one of those things that your high-skilled players can typically control pretty decently, especially any race that has any kind of a snare that they can use on those kinds of units. They'll be able to usually control it a bit, you know, and limit its damage a little more so than some of the other super units maybe. So a lot of people feel the Great Unclean One's underperforming compared to, say, the Avatar or maybe the Land Raider, which is getting nerfed to next patch, by the way, guys, or the Baneblade, stuff like that. So that's the biggest thing, really. The Chaos Predators, otherwise, are actually pretty good. There's really no direct issue with them, other than that the Space Marine Last Cannon Predator is probably better than, like, all of them. So it's more of a relative issue than anything else there. But yeah, it's more just, again, in Tier 2, Chaos will oftentimes spend a lot reinforcing or getting new things there. They don't necessarily feel the need. Remember, going to Tier 3 requires you to spend 300 requisition and 150 power and then wait 75 seconds, and then whatever you get in Tier 3 has a build time associated with it usually. So it's a big investment in time and resources to get there and to get what you need out of getting there. That leaves you vulnerable. So
also, to the basic background info, it's dow2.info is the website I'm trying to link. Another thing is you can go to our YouTube and watch the first few video on demands of the Dawn of War 2 daily, and we explain a lot of the basic concepts that you might want to just watch and learn, basically.
Yeah, that's www.youtube.com/ICCUP TV.
ICC.
Yeah. I really CUP. What's that just question?
What's better, relay, tech marine relay, or bunker with healing for Imperial Guard?
I'm gonna have to say that bunker with healing is totally better, just because when you're playing against Holy Hammer, and the second that you look away, you can get full of cards. And that is why the Imperial Guard bunker is actually the better choice.
I am very happy you're not afraid to yell and wake up your neighbors. Thank God.
Well, you know, when you have Whiplash as your roommate, I think it's perfectly acceptable, because there's a certain amount of rage that comes out of StarCraft 2, apparently. So, apparently PvP is no longer the issue, but...
For those of you who are wondering, 5-star is... Whiplash is, you might have seen him in some of our StarCraft 2 stuff, his roommate, I think, right?
Yeah, basically, so, I mean, I wouldn't call it, like... it's dorm mate technically, but ibfreeekout, by the way, who we just showcased these replays from, is also part of the apartment. So woo woo, we have our own little awesome domain of awesomeness.
Yeah. Also, if you are really serious about learning the game, I believe GameReplays.org still has that mentor program.
We're actually outsourcing it to Project Learn to Play. By the way, on top of everything else that I am, apparently, I am the administrator for GameReplays.org's Dawn of War 2 section, so I tend to know what's going on there. If you guys have any questions about anything going on there, whatever else, contact me. And sorry to override you there, Lokgar, my bad. But yeah, we haven't posted it officially or anything yet, but we're going to be outsourcing that to Project Learn to Play because they just do a better job than we do, and we don't feel the need to unnecessarily compete. It's community sites, right? We're trying to grow the community, and the better way to do that is to allow Project Learn to Play to do that. I believe Project Learn to Play's website is www.projectlearn, or I think projectl2p.com. I don't think it's Learn to Play. I think it's L2P. I think that's what it is. You can Google it. You may get to a couple sites that don't go anywhere, but eventually you'll get there. We will post links on Game Replays eventually. Hopefully this week.
Also, in chat, now that I enabled link mode, because I completely forgot I could do that.
Oh, you can?
Totally join that Steam community group page and be my fan.
So anything else in there? If not, then I just got a couple things in here I think I want to go over really quickly.
That's all from me, really. Yeah.
Alright, so let's see. Yeah, so we're talking about, I mentioned this in the battle, but you know, I was kind of saying 1,000 things in the first battle. When the Banshees got all up in the Play Champions face in that first battle, the grenade launcher heretics did a great job of actually hitting the Banshees with their first volley, with the knockback volley, with the ability, I should say. And then they kind of stayed where they were, and that was like the issue for that whole battle, because it allowed the Banshees to charge into the Play Champion, and then they were so close to the grenade launcher heretics by that point, after they knocked him back, that they charge bonused right into the grenade launcher heretics, which then could no longer support anything else. And then it just turned into like a very bad battle from there, where CSMs, Chaos Space Marines were on the right side, getting in melee with the Warlock and everything. And all that really could have been solved by, if the initial ability had been triggered, right, on the Banshees by the grenade launcher heretics, and then if they backed up and backed away, got some distance from the Play Champion, that would have opened up some time where the Banshees would not have been able to go after them. They would have actually been able to attack the Banshees while they were attacking the Play Champion and do a lot of damage to them, because of the grenades do friendly fire, like against a very high model, high health single target thingy. Okay, Lokgar's gonna run. Thank you, Lokgar. Sorry about that, but I got the list. So I decided I'm gonna finish it up for you guys here, because we said we would go ahead and do this for IB. And we will do this for any of you guys too. We will make sacrifices, or I will. So my apologies for Lokgar for not letting him get to say goodbye. But anyway, so I'll just gotta finish it up. So yeah, if you get the ability off, grenade launchers don't fire very quickly. There's a decent pause, so you've got time to move them between shooting. And then also, if the Banshees were only able to attack the Play Champion, he would have been able to weather the grenade shots the Banshees wouldn't have. It would have forced them off. So it would have just completely changed the dynamics of that battles. Replays, send them to, let me go ahead and tab it really quickly here. And alright, let's see. So that, I think you guys have that down now. And anything else in here really quickly? Yeah, Lokgar covered the whole thing about in that particular battle there, because the Banshees were way away, going away chasing those grenade launcher heretics to the end of the earth. The Chaos Space Marines on the right, instead of just sitting around in melee with the Warlock, either retreat out of that, because that's not going to go well for you, or just force melee. Use the actual force melee command on the Guardians. And basically the CSMs, despite being locked in melee with the Warlock, would have started running towards the Guardians and eventually locked them in melee. But they would have been shooting on the move, and they would have done some damage to them. By the way, Lokgar, I see you're still there. Thank you. I'm sorry that I didn't let you say goodbye, but thank you for... thanks for helping with the cast. And I will just finish this up. Watch out for grenade launcher friendly fire that hits a couple of non-grenade launcher heretic grenades, a couple of non-grenade launcher heretics a couple times. And oh, the feated armor, that was the big thing. Okay, so let's go over to the play champion really fast. I know we're a little over time, just want to cover this really quickly. This is the piece of war gear here that I knew we were going to see. I want to cover this, but alrighty. So, go over this really quickly, guys. So, right now, he's got the feated armor equipped. As we can see, it says that it grants health and the unholy stench ability, which damages and suppresses enemies. So, basically, when it's a little ability that when you cast it in a small area around you, everything is suppressed for a fair bit. So, when things are suppressed, they move slower, they fire slower. It's really good for allowing other units to kite units that are suppressed, right? So let's say that something's trying to run by the play champion, like, say, Banshees, and go ahead and melee something else, right? Pop feated armor, pop the unholy stench ability, and boom, all of a sudden Banshees are suppressed, and now, instead of, like, you know, we saw in that last battle with IB, where he tried with the grenade launcher heretics to go ahead and hit the Banshees while they were charging in. Instead of trying to hit them while they're charging in like that, had he just kind of positioned his play champion this time to actually be, like, this time being close to the grenade launcher heretics would have been a benefit, because if he could have been standing just a little bit in front of them, he would have forced the Banshees to go by him. He could have popped feated stench, suppressed them, slowed them down. The grenade launcher heretics then could have used their ability on the Banshees, then gotten their distance and continued to pound away at them, you know, while everything did. All right. So that's what I want to say about that. That's the micro tactic for that. I think that is all I've got for this. Very good job, by the way, ibfreeekout. Took a lot of courage to go up against Edja. Yeah, you do lose actually a fair bit of melee. I'm responding to Edge's question, by the way, guys, which is if you upgrade vanilla heretics to grenade launcher, do they lose melee damage because they're still very strong? Actually, I think they end up being about as strong in melee as shooters are when you upgrade them. They do lose a fair bit of melee DPS, and of course, as ibfreeekout points out, they lose Doom Blast as well. But yeah, they do lose quite a fair bit, but they are still rather strong if they're 8 out of 8 models. If you can trim their model count down, they get a fair bit weaker. But just a couple things that make them seem fairly stronger. That number one, they have the auto guns. The auto guns, basically the way that a grenade launcher heretic squad is composed is that it has a 4 grenade launcher models and 4 auto gun models. No, sorry guys, that's the last replay we're going to do. I'm just finishing up questions right now and trying to end the daily. But I will answer questions as long as is necessary, which hopefully won't be too much longer. But, you know, anyways, so grenade launcher heretics have 4 grenade launchers, and they've got 4 autoguns. So the grenade launchers and autoguns, I think, are about the same in melee. But obviously, you guys know what grenade launchers do. But the autoguns give them actually pretty good, like, close range melee damage per second. My bad, not melee. Close range damage per second. It's not a ton, but it is a decent amount. It's a lot more than you would see from other such squads. I do quite a bit. No, I don't know. I haven't done it in a little bit because of some other things. So, what's... Oh, the last part of the address got removed, and links were... Alright, there we go. So, tell me if you guys can see that. I think that should be all in the questions area. I think Edge, the thing that might make the grenade launcher heretic seem overly strong, and I don't know why this just dropped down, is that I'm pretty sure that on top of other things they also have melee resist. So that would be a 50% reduction in melee combat against melee units, which is different than the ranged combat, the ranged and melee, the reduction we were talking about earlier in the cast. So the next cast, guys, is going to be, we do these every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That translates to, I believe, was it 23:30 CET to 1 CET? But yeah, so the next one will be tomorrow night. Again, starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 23:30 CET. So again, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you, Lokgar, for helping out with the cast as always, for co-hosting. Kaderp. Yeah, we'll see you then, unless you guys have nice question, ITP. Yeah, anyway, so unless you guys have any other questions, I don't think you do. I think that should be it for today. We'll probably answer them next time. Little preview of next time. We have an awesome replay from the GameReplays Open Season Tournament of Norny and Always Lame. I just was like watching it before the cast, thinking of like, okay, what if we need an extra replay? I'll make sure to have one ready, and I got it, and it's like a 30-minute replay. It's Mechboy versus Ravener Alpha, and you know, a lot of players are used to seeing, well, I mean, a lot of you guys are probably used to seeing Tyranids play, you know, competitively at this point. Maybe a little bit tired of it, you think, but this was a little bit more of an interesting, kind of different match, just because of the way that Norny went about it. He really was doing some interesting things. Both players took some really odd losses that really made the game kind of, again, just back and forth all the way, despite that, you know, one player seemed to be out of it throughout. Anyway, yeah, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that. Whereas like all these ones were analysis, that one will be a little more fun. But you know, we'll also look at what both players were trying to accomplish too. So you know, obviously at the dailies we always kind of, you know, whenever we can mix fun and analysis, we love doing that. But we'll also do some straight up analysis on occasion and some straight up fun on occasion too. So, oh, also some of you guys asked when we plan to do some Last Stand. Actually, the more I think about it, there's that patch coming out. For those of you guys that don't know, it's basically free downloadable content. New weapons, new war gear, whatever else, like 12 pieces of it is coming out in the very near future. And so I think when that happens, on that day, we will probably do some Last Stand stuff, just because we won't be able to use replays. Unfortunately, the one bad thing about Dawn of War 2's replay system is that we can't view replays from old patches. There is, you know, if it's just a bug fix, we can. Because we can kind of do it via nefarious means. But if it's not a bug fix, and this is going to be a balanced patch, if it does actually change stuff, then we cannot do that. So, but yeah, we will probably do the Last Stand stuff on that day. Don't hold me to that, but that would be my plan. But anyway, yeah, so also just give a quick shout out to GameReplays.org. They put on a great show with the GameReplays Open Season. Want to thank them for letting us show the replays, and also want to let you guys know to go ahead and check that out. The next GameReplays Open Season signups for Tournament B are starting on Wednesday, I believe at noon Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to go ahead and sign up for that if you're interested. If you got even, again, ibfreeekout, you know, got to the second round. He got to play one of the best players in the tournament, the best player in the tournament. I won't spoil that too much for you guys. So, you know, unless you guys want to go back on the VOD and go ahead and figure out what I just mumbled into the microphone about spoiling the tournament. But anyway, yeah, so you don't have to be the absolute best of the best to enter the tournament. Get some great experience, and we will, of course, if you partook in the tournament, we will go ahead, look at your replays, help you out. And because, you know, you got some great competition if you partook in, you know, a tournament like that. So, you know, we know that. But anyway, and then also I know that Game Replays has something coming up this weekend to go ahead and look out for that involves custom maps, guys. Custom maps. Not the same usual stuff you're used to seeing. So, alright, I think I'm done with announcements. I am done with the cast. I think I'm going to lose my voice if I keep talking more because I've been talking all weekend, all throughout the weekend, and now to now. So thank you, guys. Thank you for listening in. This is 5-star General. Lord Lokgar already signed off. He knew that I had a diatribe coming, I guess. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. We'll be here tomorrow. We'll be here Wednesday. We'll be here Friday. And I will probably be here in some capacity on Saturday, although probably not this channel. But again, thank you very much, guys, and we will See you tomorrow.